Okay, students. So, uh, starting with the shallow foundation isolated from swelling soil. So, this figure shows the typical shallow foundation under a outside wall. The granular material is provided around the foundation, which is mitigates the effects of expansion of the soils. Right? There is a plain protection given. Breakwalls is here. RCC foundation is given. Granular fills are provided. RCC grade beams is provided. Right? So second is Waffle slab. So this figure shows a schematic diagram of a Waffle slab. In this type of construction, the dips hold the structural load and the Waffle voids allow the expansion of the soils. Third one is a drill pier foundation. And as you can see in this figure, this is our straight shaft pier, and second one is a bell pier. Right? That Z is described as the active zone, and below the active zone there is a stable zone. Right? This D is equal to dead load of the structure. So this drill pier are commonly used to resist the uplift forces caused by the swelling of soils. So drill piers when made with the enlarged base are called bell piers, and when made without an enlarged base are called as a straight shaft pier. So the bottom of the sound should be uh, below the active zone of expansive soil. Uplift force U may be estimated as U is equal to pi d s z sigma dash SW 10 pi dash rho s. Here ds is equal to diameter of shaft, z is equal to depth of active zone, sigma dash SW is equal to zero swell pressure, and pi dash rho s is equal to effective angle of plinth soil reaction. So this figure shows the drill pier with the grade beam. So undering piles are successfully developed by CBRI Roorkee for serving as a foundation for black cotton soils, filled up grounds, and other types of soils having poor bearing capacity. So the principle of this type of foundation is to anchor the structure at a depth where the ground movements due to seasonal moisture changes is negligible. So the underrim piles are bored cast in situ concrete piles having one or more bulbs or under rims in its lower portion. So bulbs are formed by under rimming tool, such as length of pile is 3 to 8 meter, the diameter of pile is zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.5 meter, the diameter of bulb is 2 to 3 times the diameter of pile. For multiple bulb pile, the vertical spacing between two bulbs is 1.25 times the bulb diameter. The spacing of piles vary from 2 to 4 meter, right? So there is a single bulb pile, and second one is a multiple bulb pile. So for grade beams, cast in situ as continuous monolithic beams on the top of the piles supports the wall of the building. So and on the expansive soils, the beams are kept at least 8 centimeter clear the ground to accommodate swelling of the soil. On non-expansive soils, the grade beams may rest on the ground. Now, static analysis of underrim piles. The ultimate load carrying capacity of underrim piles is given by QU is equal to QB plus QS. Here, QB is equal to small QB into AB and QS is equal to FSAS. Here, small QB is equal to bearing capacity at the base of the bulb, and this equation is gamma D and Q. AB is equal to cross-sectional area of bulb. Fs is equal to unit soil friction between the pile and soil, and AS is equal to surface area of the pile in the contact with soil. For the multi-bulb pile, QU is equal to small QB into AB plus FSAS plus FS bar AS bar. Here FS bar is equal to unit friction resistance between soil and the soil. AS bar is equal to surface area of soil cylinder of diameter equal to the diameter of bulb, and height equal to the distance between the center of top and bottom bulb. Here QB and AB for the lowest bulb and FSAS for the pile above the top bulb. So under in piles in a clay, QU equation is equal to CNC AB plus alpha CAS. Here EB is equal to cross-sectional area of bulb, NC is equal to 9 and alpha is equal to 0.4. So for collapsible soil characteristics, collapsible soils are unsaturated soils that undergo a large change in volume upon a saturation. So the sudden and large volume change may cause considerable structural damage. The change in volume may or may not be result of the application of additional load. So the collapsible soils are known as a metastable soils. The majority of naturally occurring collapsible soils are aeoline, that is wind deposited sands or shales such as Lewis, aeric beaches, and volcanic dust deposits. So the deposits have a high void ratio and low unit weights and are corrosionless and are only slightly cohesive, right? So the Lewis deposits have a silt-sized particles. The cohesion in Lewis may be result of clay coating surrounding the silt-sized particles. The coating holds the particles in a rather stable condition in an unsaturated state. The cohesion also may be caused by the presence of chemical precipitates leaching by the rainwater. When the soil becomes saturated and the clay binders lose their strength and undergo a structural collapse. So the typical structure of their low unit weight, unconsolidated sediments consist of coarser particles bonded at their contact points by the finer silts or clay fraction or by the surface tension in the water at the air-water interference. Right, so these soils are found in arid and semi-arid regions and have a loose soil structure, right? So the thickness of this loose deposit can range about 10 meter in the central United States, and in parts of China it can be up to 100 meter. So the addition of water is widely used expansion for triggering soil collapse. Collapse can occur as the result of load application or wetting or both. So the collapse can occur either by increasing the stress above the soil strength or by lowering the soil strength below the stress. So whether the physical basis of the bond strength, all collapsible soils are weakened by adding water. So decreased strength is more immediate in case where the grains are held together by capillary action. Slow in the case of chemical cementing and much slower in the case of clay watterness. It may take long periods of time, even years, for total collapse to take place. The typical collapsible soil structure as shown in figure. So the behavior of collapsible soils under the load is best explained by typical void ratio effective pressure plot as shown in this figure. So at effective pressure level of sigma dash W before saturation, the equilibrium void ratio is even. However, if the water is introduced to the specimen for saturation, the soil structure will collapse. After saturation, the equilibrium void ratio at the same effective pressure level, sigma dash W, is E2, right? So the foundation that are constructed on such soils may undergo large and sudden settlement if the soil under them becomes saturated with unanticipated supply of moisture. So the moisture may come from any several sources such as broken water pipelines, leaky showers, drainage from reservoir, slow increase in a groundwater, and so on. And this type of settlements generally causes the considerable structural damage. So identification of collapsible soils, the geotechnical engineer needs to be able to readily identify the soils that collapse and to determine the amount of collapse that might occur. So the soil deposits most likely to collapse are loose fields, altered wind-blown sands, hillwash or alluvial fens, or low unit weight, decomposed granite or other acidic igneous rocks. So in some cases, the geotechnical engineer is concerned about the time required for collapse to occur, especially it might cause differential settlement beneath the structure. The identification and prediction of soil collapse have proven difficult because no single criterion can be applied to all collapsible soils. So routine and sophisticated tests do not always reliably indicate that the presence of collapsible soils because of many different configurations which hold the bulky grains in the place. So to date, most criteria for determining the susceptibility to collapse are based on relations among the porosity, void ratio, water content, and implies dry unit weight. So there are field observations. With an understanding of the basic principles of the phenomenon and with experience, the likelihood of soil collapse settlement can be recognized from a fresh soil profile in the field, so that the following points must, however, be considered. So, collapse settlement will not occur in soils which lie below the water table, because the conditions of partial saturation is an essential prerequisite to collapse. Second is, if the soil is silty and clay, it will likely to have a stiff or hard consistency due to uh, partial saturation. Therefore, during the site inspection, in the in situ water content must be considered and judgment made on sample which has been wetted. So errors in assessment of collapse susceptibility have been made simply because the engineer examined the dry profile has forgotten that the subsoil will become wetted after the completion of the structure. So there is a very simple field test which can be used to assist in assessing the collapsible potential of a soil profile, right? So a block of material about hand size is taken from the side of the test pit from auger boring, cutting, or other sources. It is broken into the pieces and each is trimmed until they approximately equal in volume. So one specimen is then weighted and the molded in the hands to form a damp ball, and the volume of this ball is then compared to the volume of the undisturbed specimen. So if the weighted ball is obviously smaller than the undisturbed piece, there is a potential for soil collapse. So there are some laboratory testing. So Jennings and Knight in 1975 suggested a procedure for describing the collapse potential of a soil. So degree of volume changes is expressed as a collapsible potential known as a CP, right? So an undisturbed soil specimen is taken, its natural moisture contained in consolidation drain. So step loads are applied to a specimen up to a pressure level of sigma dash of 200 km per meter square as shown in figure. As that pressure specimen is flooded for saturation and left for 24 hours. This test is provide the void ratio E1 and E2 before and after the flooding, right? So the collapse potential may now be calculated as Cp is equal to delta E is equal to E1 minus E2 divided by 1 plus E0. So here E1 is equal to equilibrium void ratio before saturation. E2 is equal to equilibrium void ratio after the saturation. E0 is equal to natural void ratio of the soil, which is equal to WGS. Here GS is equal to 2.65 and delta E is equal to vertical strain. The the severity of the foundation problem associated with the collapsible soil have been correlated with the collapse potential CP as shown in the table. So for CP percentage 0 to 1, it's no problem. For 1 to 5, it's a moderate trouble. 5 to 10 is a trouble. 10 to 25, several trouble. And for greater than 20, it's a very several trouble. So according to the Holes and Heath suggested that a losses soil that has a void ratio large enough to allow its moisture content exceed its liquid limit upon the saturation is susceptible to the collapse. So for collapse, W saturated greater than or equal to LL and E0 is equal to LL in bracket GS. So the natural dry density of the soil required for its collapse is gamma D is equal to GS gamma W divided by 1 plus E0. Right? So the treatment methods for collapsible soils. So many methods have been used for treating collapsible soils. So the method selected depends upon the several factors such as depth of collapsible soil deposit, the type of structures to be built, the capability of the structures to withstand settlement, a likelihood of the foundation to become wetted, and the stresses imposed on the foundation by the structure. So all attempts are sometimes made to prevent wetting. probability of wetting foundation soils at some point in the life of a given project is high, especially for agricultural irrigation projects, right? So in assessing this mitigation measures, the issue of shallow or deep deposits must be considered, and that distinction is often not clear out. So some mitigation measures such as compaction with the rollers or tampers will mostly certainly not produce result for deep deposits and may or may not work for shallow deposits. So in any case, each situation must be evaluated, and often several methods are tried before satisfactory results are achieved. So if these collapsible soils are identified in foundation for structures, including canals, a prime objective should be stabilize those soils before construction. So it is much less expensive to solve the problem at the point rather than after the project is built. So the maintenance costs are reduced, the project's operation is more efficient, and the lives of structures are extended. So prevention of minimization of damage due to collapsible soils can be categorized as follows, which is induce collapse by wetting prior to construction or foundation loading, often called as a hydrocompaction, decrease foundation pressure, solidify the soil so that it is unaffected by addition of water and does not lose their shear strength, remove collapsible soil, densify collapsible soil by methods of other hydrocompaction, and other methods includes pile cations, deep blasting combined with pre-wetting, etc. So there are some methods from each of these categories have been used, and particularly aspects of each are discussed from the following. So first one is a first one is a induced collapse prior to construction. So for water conveyance structures where the foundation wetting after construction is unavoidable, the most effective method of collapsible soil prior to construction is by superficially ponding water along the alignment. So infiltration wells should be used with this method to ensure that the soils becomes wetted to depth and to accelerate the process of collapse. So pre-wetting by ponding and in conjunction with surcharge loading can decrease the overall time required for collapse to occur. And in some instances, the embankment for the ponds have served as a surcharge load. Surface sprinkling has also been used for pre-wetting. Infiltration well should be used to speed the process. With sprinkling, however, there is no hydraulic loading or embankment loading as there is when ponds are used, and in arid regions, pre-wetting by any methods provides additional benefits of increasing the soil water content for easier construction excavations. So decrease foundation pressure. So this method is only effective for concentration structure sites such as pumping plants or canal structures, but cannot be used for canal itself. So the most commonly used techniques to decrease the foundation loading are to use floating foundations to decrease the soil loads by removing materials equal to the structural weight, or to use piles or cations. Solidify the soil. The various chemical stabilization techniques have been investigated to mitigate collapse of soils. However, none of this proven practical for line structures such as canal. Right, so thermochemical process have been suited, but only in the laboratory. Use of lime will stabilize the collapse susceptible soils, but they need to be intimately mixed with the soil, then compacted near optimum water content. So essentially the same stabilizing effect can be achieved to minimize collapse potential with only soil compaction but without the additive. Solidifying soil with additives is not practical for water resources project. So for remove collapsible susceptible soil, is economically only if they are at the shallow depth, and then only for concentrated subterranean sites. So densify collapsible soil. The two methods more often used to densify these collapsible soils at a depth are dynamic compaction and vibro compaction. So dynamic compaction consists of using large crane or tripod to drop large heavy weight from a height to density low unit weight soil. The weight is dropped on a regular grade pattern covering the site, and the depression made by the drop weight are filled with the select material. So depending on the situation, process may be repeated several times until the desired unit weights are reached to a desired depth. The maximum depth of this treatment by this process is about 35 feet or more or less. This method is only economical for concentrated structural sites. Next is vibrocompaction technique. Make sure a large vibro float probe suspended from a crane. So the vibration is produced by eccentric weight inside the probe, which is driven by an electric or a hydraulic motors. So powerful water jets are located near the tip and along the sides of the probe. The probe is gradually lowered through the soil to be treated using only vibration, water jets, and its own weight to advance. So the probe is raised and lowered, and the gravel is fed into the hole and worked into the surrounding soil. This process progresses, the soil are reworked and compressed in a higher unit weight state. In dynamic compaction, this method is only economical for concentrated structural sites.